In this video, we are going to talk about Mexican muralism. Mexico has had a great tradition of painting on murals, starting during the Olmec civilization on pre-Columbian times, and also after the Spanish conquest during colonial times. But in this video, we are going to focus on one specific movement, artistic and social movement, that took place during the 20th century. A little bit of historical background. Porfirio Diaz was president of Mexico at the end of the 19th century and beginning of the 20th century. He was greatly criticized because of the great disparity between the rich and the poor, the exploitation of workers, and the fact that he was always favoring European culture and seemed to be ashamed of his own culture and didn't value Mexican culture. And also, there were some allegations of electoral corruption that allowed him to stay in office for a long time. This situation led to the Mexican Revolution between the years of 1910 and 1920. The main goal was to overthrow Porfirio Diaz, but also to implement social and economic changes. Our relevant time begins now, at the end of the Mexican Revolution. The first president after the revolution was Álvaro Obregón, and he put José Vasconcelos as the Secretary of Education. José Vasconcelos was an advocate of education through public art, and he commissioned the creation of paintings on government buildings. That is, he paid painters to paint on the walls of government buildings. Mexican muralism is both an artistic and a social movement, and it was commissioned by the government that resulted from the revolution. For that reason, Mexican muralism, reflects the ideals of the Mexican Revolution. Why paint on walls and not on paintings, like in a regular museum? Muralism, paintings on murals, gives access to all social classes to culture and also serves the purpose to educate the people. The main painters of this movement are Diego Rivera, José Clemente Orozco, and David Alfaro Siqueiros. One of the most important themes of this movement was a reflection about Mexican identity. This was a time of crisis in the national identity of Mexico. So it was a time to ask, who are we as Mexicans and what does it mean to be Mexican? And where do we find answers to this question of the national identity? Usually history is a good place to start. So what are the important and key history moments, events, and people in Mexican history? We might begin with pre-Columbian past, the life of indigenous peoples of the Americas until the arrival of Christopher Columbus. Also, Spanish conquest was a key moment in the making of the Mexican identity. Also, Mexican independence from both Spain and France, and Mexican Revolution. Here we can see an example of a painting depicting pre-Columbian life by Diego Rivera called Mercado de Tlatelolco. It's a market, and here we can see people that challenge the idea of indigenous people as savages. On the contrary, here we see civilization and we see peace. Here we have two different paintings that show a different view of pre-Columbian life. Diego Rivera, again showing civilization, peace, work, collaboration. On the other side, we see a painting by David Alfaro Siqueiros that shows an Aztec sacrifice. This doesn't mean that David Alfaro Siqueiros continue with the idea of Aztecs as savages. What happens is that David Alfaro Siqueiros was the most radical of the three muralists, and he always saw or showed the most raw image of everything that he depicted. He was the most critical. Here we see two images of the Spanish conquest, also seeing different perspectives. David Alfaro Siqueiros again showing the most raw moments, showing the Spaniards torturing Cuauhtemoc, the last Aztec emperor, while Jose Clemente Orozco is showing a different image. He's showing Hernán Cortés, the Spanish conqueror, and Malinche, who was an indigenous interpreter. Mexican independence, another important time in history. Here we see two paintings by Jose Clemente Orozco, one of Benito Juarez, who was the leader of the Mexican independence from France, and another one of Miguel Hidalgo, the leader of the Mexican independence from Spain. And finally, we see two paintings about the Mexican Revolution. One is called La Revolución Mexicana by Diego Rivera. Again, he's showing a non-controversial image in which we can see all the stakeholders of the Mexican Revolution, the main phrases and slogans of this revolution: Tierra, Libertad y Pan, land, liberty, and bread, and a painting by Jose Clemente Orozco in which he's showing another image of the revolution, one that is a little bit more nuanced, with some pain and suffering of the people during this conflict.